Rev up your engines!
All right, it's brake job time, so here we go in the garage. It's a RAV4, it needs a brake job, so we're gonna do the front first. Put on the brake so it doesn't roll. Yes, it has a regular brake. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, this baby has a locker on it. The owner didn't tell me where it was, so the hunt begins. If you bring a car to a mechanic, please tell them where the lock is. There's a puzzle lock for that, because if you can't get it off, you can't work on the car. So let's hope it's in the trunk. Here's some toolkit, and unfortunately, it isn't where it belongs. The fun begins. This is why I warn people, please tell your mechanic if you have lockers where they are. If you don't know where they are and you have lockers, you might not even have it. Somebody might have left it out. You get a flat tire, you're screwed. People can't get them off. So, gotta know where the locker is if you have lockers on them. The regular sockets will take them all except that one. I gotta find the locker now. Pull everything out. Check under here. It's hiding there somewhere, because if it isn't, we're screwed. Voila, it was found. Now I can take it off. These lockers can be a pain. I still have pretty good luck with this CSCRI electric input wrench. We'll see if it's still working. Snap one of the 2 battery packs in. Find a socket that fits. Does it work? It still works pretty good. I have to say, I'm really happy with this thing. It's never broken, and the real advantage is it's got 2 battery packs and a charger that fit in a nice case. So, if you were a bad boy or girl, forgot to charge it, you got another one. You can put that in and charge the other one, so you're not going to be stuck in the middle of a job. Now, he's never changed it, so we're going to take the caliper off, get it out of the way, because he bought new rotors, too. So, there's 2 14mm bolts on the back side. Got the one loose. Get them loose before you take them out or they'll jam. Caliper will start moving, so you want to loosen them both first, then take them off. And then it just slides right off. Put it over here. Now there's 2 17mm bolts on the back. That holds the caliper assembly on. Notice I can't get to them, so I'm going to have to turn the wheel. So I'll turn the wheel to the left so we get more room. And now we should be able to access it. There we go. There's 1 and 2. Out it goes, out of the way. Now we can remove the rotor. They stick on, so we can just hit it. And wiggling, off it comes. Now the customer bought the brake pads front and rear, so let's hope they're the right ones. Well, they match up good, so they should work, and these are Duralast Elite. They're from AutoZone. They're pretty good pads. Check the rotors. Well, these rotors, as you see, they don't match. Hopefully this is the back one. We'll try another box. As you can see, they don't match. You got the wrong rotors. So much for AutoZone knowing what they're doing. You got them at AutoZone, they're the wrong ones. So I called up the guy at O'Reilly's, and guess what? They bought the correct ones, and now they're coated with goo, so we gotta use brake parts cleaner to clean the goo off, otherwise you'll have oily brakes, and they don't stop too good then. Simple to do. Turn it over. You only have to do the parts that the pads touch. Then just let it air dry. Put the rotor on. Notice this one fits. We get the bracket and we bolt it on with the 2 bolts. You got wiggling around a little to line it up. And of course this is wiggling because it's not bolted on yet, so we gotta kind of hold that in place. Then we'll put this on nice and tight. Get the giant pair of pliers. Squeeze the caliper back in. Make it a little smaller. Start squeezing. In it goes. You squeeze it until it's flush right here. But even though they look close, guess what? The AutoZone brake pads don't fit either. Sheesh. So much for AutoZone. Well, instead we got them from O'Reilly. These import direct OE replacement. Pretty good pads. And guess what? They fit in perfectly. As you can see during the storm here, we'll turn the light on so we can see better. They just easily snap right in, perfect fit. And I don't like squeaky brakes, so I get a little of this brake lubricant made for brakes. I put a little, I rubs on the inside, and a little right on the piston itself, and then slide it on. Then once you have it slid on, put another light on, one on the top, one on the bottom. You gotta wiggle them to line them up, and do the bottom side, like you say, a little bit of wiggling. Then you get them on, and of course tighten them up. You can use a torque wrench if you want, but I find you get it snug and then a little hit with a hammer, and that's perfectly fine too. Now the important thing to getting the wheel on this, you put it on finger tight, but then you want to use a torque wrench on this because you don't One have them too loose or too tight and warped things, or have the wheels fall off. So, in this case, the torque wrench is set at the 76 foot-pounds. So, 76, turned it to 76, and you tighten them until they click. So, we'll put it on the ground. Now the wheel won't spin, so it'll click. And you just do them all to make sure they're all the correct tightness. But at least now we know we got the front ones done. The left front, the right front will be the same thing. I won't film that. We know that the parts from O'Reilly fit, so let's hope that the back ones that came from AutoZone will fit. Take the locker off first. Off it comes. Then we'll take the rest of them off. We got the wheel off. Same basic process. 14 millimeter. You take these bolts off. Top and the bottom. You loosen them, then take them off with your fingers. Out come the two bolts. You wiggle this off, then you unbolt the two in the back. And the two back ones are 17 millimeter. They're harder to get off, so we'll have to really hammer them. We can't get the impact wrench in there. Not enough room. So we got to do it by hand. Once it breaks loose, it's easy to get off. Now I can wiggle it, do it by hand. At least I used to be able to. I'm getting kind of weak in my old age. I'll have to put a socket on it there. Now it's coming off. Okay, that's out of the way. It's totally safe to use a rotor like this over my own car. Sometimes 20 years later, I still got the same rotor. I just put new pads on. If the rotors aren't warped or worn, I leave them alone. So let's hope the new pads match. They look like they do. We'll see if they fit in. We'll put the caliper mounting bracket in, and we'll get our wrench to tighten it up. And we'll do the same thing as before. We'll hit it with a hammer to make sure it's super tight. We don't want them falling off. Like I say, you can do a torque wrench if you want. You don't trust yourself. Now comes a moment of truth. Well, the new pads fit. Snap right in, nice and tight. Just what we want. And of course, we have to snap the other side on too. Now it's in there nice and solid. And of course, we squeeze the caliper back in. This one should be easier because it's smaller. Yeah, it's a lot easier squeezing this in. Squeeze it in until it's flush here. And of course, we don't want noise back here either. So we get the brake caliper grease. We put a little on the inside where the piston is. And then some on the inside here. So it won't rub and squeak. Then we just bolt it back on. Sides on. We get the two bolts. Line them up. Get them finger tight. Then finish tightening with the wrench. Then you put the wheel back on. And do the other side. Finish them off with the torque wrench. Set at 76 foot-pounds. There's nothing wrong with the wheel. It goes perfectly fine. Since it works fine, worked fine before, the pads are just getting thin, the rotors aren't warped, they don't have ridges on them, there's no sense tearing that whole thing apart. It's all rusted inside. If we tore it out, we'd probably break the emergency brake. We'd have to work on that whole system. So, it works perfectly fine. Don't get yourself into a rat's nest. Don't say, well, I'm going to put this new part on. Unless it's broken and you have to. In this case, both sides are rusted on. They would be a stinker to take off. And leaving them on isn't going to hurt anything. They work perfectly fine. It's just that if you ever do have to replace them, you're going to have to tear that whole thing apart. You're going to have to get a slide hammer, probably slide it off. You'll probably break internal parts on the emergency brake system. Then you'd have to replace them, and they cost a fortune. So in this case, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there you have it. Now you know how easy it is to do a brake job yourself. It's not that hard to do. And realize, in the case of these rear rotors, they weren't really worn. You didn't have to change them, and since they're rusted on, if we tried to take them off, we probably would have had to replace the emergency brake system. That would probably snap off, and you may have ruined the rear wheel bearing. You'd have to buy the whole hub assembly and get into a whole bunch of money when the brakes still work perfectly fine. The pads were thin, but the rotor's not warped. It also shows you why the cars up north have heavier maintenance. This thing is a heck of a lot newer. It's actually 10 years newer than my wife's Matrix. The rear brakes on her Matrix, hey, they're perfectly fine. Don't need to have expensive parts taken out because you can't get it off to get the rotor off. The pad part's okay. Calipers are fine. They're not binding or anything. But don't get into a rat's nest if you don't have to. People oversell rotors all the time. Now, if it was really bad and the rotors were all rusted and they're going to just fall apart from rust, that'd be another story. But you could see they're still in decent shape. They're not cracked, they're not warped, so we just used them over. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.